Oh, I am slain. If thou be merciful, open the tomb, lay me with Juliet. From this world-wearied flesh, eyes, look your last. Body for the last time, arms take your last embrace. And lips sow you the doors of breath, seal with a righteous kiss. A dateless bargain to engrossing death. Come, bitter conduct, come, unsavoury guide, thou desperate pilot, now at once run on. Here's to my love, true apothecary, thy drugs are quick. Thus with a kiss I die. Hello and welcome to you wherever you may be. I hope you are well this week. I have 3 extracts from Gurdjieff and Ouspensky. In one of the meetings, Gurdjieff describes some interesting and subtle details about the development of the octave. In another passage, Ouspensky talks about the Russian Bolshevik Revolution. Now remember his book, In Search of the Miraculous, although it is an extraordinary and very precise record of Gurdjieff's teaching, it also includes a lot of material that the two men were going through in that era of the Russian Revolution. And in the UK at the moment, and largely through the Western world, there is a contraction which is very much akin to the Bolshevik Revolution, but in a slightly different form. So I'll begin with that one. The situation at this time was beginning to become defined. On the one side were the Bolsheviks, as yet not fully realizing the incredible success which was awaiting them, but already beginning to feel the absence of resistance and to act more and more insolently. On the other side was the second provisional government, with many serious people who understood the situation in their minor posts, and with altogether insignificant babblers and theorists in the major posts. Then there was the intelligentsia, greatly decimated by the war. Then the remains of former parties and the military circles. All these taken together were divided in their turn into 2 groups, one who in the face of all the facts and common sense accepted the possibility of peace parleys with the Bolsheviks, who very cleverly made use of this while gradually occupying one position after another, and the other who, while realizing the impossibility of any negotiation whatsoever with the Bolsheviks, were at the same time not united and did not come out actively into the open. The people were silent, although never perhaps in history has the will of the people been so clearly expressed, and that will was to stop the war. But who could stop the war? This was the chief question of the moment. The provisional government did not dare. Naturally, it could not come from the military circles, and yet power was bound to pass to whoever should be the first to pronounce the word peace. And as often happens in such cases, the right word came from the wrong side. The Bolsheviks pronounced the word peace, first of all because it was a matter of complete indifference to them what they said. They had no intention of meeting their promissory notes, therefore they could issue as many of them as they liked. This was their chief advantage and chief strength. There was something else here besides this. Destruction is always far easier than construction. How much easier it is to burn down a house than to build a new one. The Bolsheviks were the agents of destruction. Neither then nor since could they or can they be anything else, notwithstanding all their boasting, and notwithstanding all the support of their open and their hidden friends. But they could and they can destroy very well, not so much by their own activity as by their very existence, which corrupts and disintegrates everything around them. This special property of theirs explained their approaching victory and all that happened much later. We who were looking at things from the point of view of the system could see not only the facts that everything happens, but even how it happens, that is, how easily everything goes downhill and breaks up once a single impulse is given to it. Well, there is quite a lot of symmetry between that and what is occurring in Britain today. But on the other hand, what nature has built over such a long time is not truly so easily destroyed. Anyway, as I was growing up in London in the 70s and 80s and 90s, I heard this kind of talk about the danger of the Bolsheviks and the communists and so on. But I understand things a bit differently now. The fact is, following World War I and World War II, the West is quite badly damaged, and especially without people with a metaphysical knowledge to guide these nations. There is an inevitable decay, and it has already happened. The people who try to hold the original, the West, are going to fail. You cannot hold anymore what has decayed for so many years. Things have to be reduced. The situation is a bit like when you've got a family and the man goes off to war and he comes back and he's had his legs shot off, and then the wife starts to take on more responsibilities. That's basically what Bolshevism is, and in a way you should trust it, because the instincts of the woman is at their best to prepare the soil and to clear away all the debris. They want to deliver a new baby. People who keep talking about the glory days and want to cling on are not going to help the situation anymore. But there are not many people in society, in any part of human society, who really understand how to connect the male and the female parts together in the right way. There are just two camps always, with very little light flowing between them. Let's go back now to views from the real world. To write music, wouldn't you need an idea as well as knowledge? The mathematical law is the same for everyone. All mathematically constructed music is the result of movements. At one time I conceived the idea of observing movements. So while travelling and collecting material about art, I observed only movements. Coming back home, I played the music in accordance with the movements I had observed, and it proved identical with the actual music, for the man who wrote it wrote mathematically. Yet while observing the movements I did not listen to that music, for I had no time. In the East they have the same octave as we have, from Do to Do, Only here we divide the octave into 7, while there they have different divisions into 48, 7, 4, 23 and 30, but the law is the same everywhere, from do to do, the same octave. Each note also contains 7. The finer the ear, the greater the number of divisions. In the Institute we use quarter tones because Western instruments have no smaller divisions. And with the piano one has to make a certain compromise. But stringed instruments allow the use of quarter tones. In the East, they not only use quarters but a seventh of a tone. To foreigners, Eastern music seems monotonous. They only wonder at its crudity and musical poverty. But what sounds like one note to them is a whole melody for the local inhabitants, a melody contained in one note. This kind of melody is much more difficult than ours. If an Eastern musician makes a mistake in his melody, the result is cacophony for them. But for a European, the whole thing is a rhythmic monotone. In this respect, only a man who grew up there can distinguish good and bad music. For development, there is no limit, in music or other forms of art, for the young or the old. But development is not merely wishing. First, I will explain about development. There is the law of evolution and of involution. Everything is in motion, both organic life and inorganic, neither up or down. But evolution has its limits as well as involution. As an example, let us take the musical scale of 7 notes. From one do to the other there is one place where there is a stop. When you touch the keys you start a do, a vibration which has a certain momentum in it. With its vibration it can go a certain distance till it starts another note vibrating, namely re, and then mi. Up to that point the notes have an inner possibility of going on, but here, if there is no outside push, the octave goes back. If it gets this outside help, it can go on by itself for a long way. Man is also constructed in accordance with this law. Man serves as an apparatus in the development of this law. I eat, but nature has made me for a certain purpose. I must evolve. I do not eat for myself, but for some outside purpose. Eat because this thing cannot evolve by itself without my help. I eat some bread, I also take in air and impressions. These come in from outside and then work by law. It is the law of the octave. If we take any note, it can become a do. Do contains both possibility and momentum. It can rise to re and mi without help. Bread can evolve, but if not mixed with air, it cannot become fa. This energy helps it to pass a difficult place. After that, it needs no help until si. But it can go no further than this by itself. Our aim is to help the octave to completion. Si is the highest point in ordinary animal life, and it is the matter from which a new body can be built. All the laws are one, but the soul we seek is a remote thing, and all new things require the third force. Nature has arranged it so that air and bread are chemically quite different and cannot mix. But as bread changes in Ray and me, it becomes more permeable so that they can mix. Now you must work on yourself. You are dough. When you get to me, you can meet help. I find it quite hard to teach in this environment with so much noise. I've got builders front and back at the moment. It's easier just to do practices and be taught by a school, which is what I recommend because the world is very hard. The teachers that I have studied all had many teachers themselves. They spent years in monasteries in the East and so on. Nobody can do it by themselves. So the various fine details of the octave there are very important to understand. Also notice when he talks about air and bread, that the elements that form a trinity are not on the same plane. There's something in that. I came across something interesting this week. I was doing some old and very sophisticated Taoist practices, and they referred to a kind of energy that comes from the celestial pole, which is where the North Star is, Polaris. And if we include with that several constellations that are around the North Star, the Great Bear, Draco, and a few others, the Chinese say that this hidden palace provides a heaven energy that can be felt and used and related to. That's part of the practice. I won't talk too much about that today, but I was wondering about it. Apparently the nearest star to us is Alpha Centauri. Our sun inhabits a very particular neighbourhood, and that neighbourhood does have neighbours of particular sorts. I don't know much about them. Something else. I was walking through the streets coming back from one of my Tai Chi practices, and I noticed that the light was passing through my body, which was quite strange. What does that mean? By the light, I mean simply what I see. The streets, the houses, the trees. Ordinarily, people see that through their eyes. The light goes through the eyeballs, so they think. And they're unaware of other things. But later, during the course of a human being's development, he can experience that light within the inside of the head. That's what the word consciousness should mean. It means that you start to experience the goldfish bowl nature of the inside of the headspace, which is our consciousness. It's what we experience, this inner world. Some aspect of the light that we see passes straight into it, presumably through the higher bodies. But what I noticed, which I had not seen before, is that the light was passing through the whole of my body, like through my legs, because the development of these higher bodies had reached a level where I could experience that. At the same time, the physical body is still there. It's strange for me to talk about these things, but ultimately the price was extremely high, and for whatever reason I've been forced into a situation to, do this stuff. I'll read something else which I believe is taken from The Woman of the Rope, or from that era, which was the end of Gurdjieff's life when he was in Paris. Canary, how much was what put kitchen box? Was 20 or 15 francs? Not quite remember. Think 15. How you know, Miss Gordon, you never put. Canary, you must calculate how much Miss Gordon owes. 2 years kitchen box plus 2 zeros. This seedless orange, this sperm part inside, only one orange in many have this part from which grow new oranges. Sperm is good word for this. Sperm can be male or female, not only male. Old Turkish word is soil, and truth good word is. If all real words and meanings in each language were taken, and from them one language created, no more necessary it would be to go to school. Yet instead man makes Esperanto. Yes, and such man makes as masturbate all life, and when can no more, he makes this artificial Esperanto language. Education make only logic. But I make logic what I wish. Such idiot thing is logic. Can make 5 times 5 equal 113. Can also make 2 and 2 equals 6 or 7 or 8. Such is logic. Mr. Gurdjieff, I know one anecdote. There are 2 Englishmen, one old and one young. The old one tells a story for half an hour. Then the second, to punish him, tells him the same story back again for half an hour. The first Englishman says, "Bless my soul, what a good story. Where did you hear it?" "One mistake you make. Second man not English. Never would English be bored with such story, even if 3 hour take to tell. Must it he be from another country?" I edited that meeting a lot because it was quite poorly recorded. What he said about logic interested me because what he means is that when people are educated and speak in that way, they're just repeating words with the intellectual center and there's no real feeling inside. And so there is no anchoring in reality, in three-centeredness. To wake up means that you suddenly see that people are talking in a kind of empty way. They do their business, they do their life as a kind of rhythm that has been set up inside of them. So they do wake up in the morning and eat and take the kids to school and all the rest of it. But they do not really recognize what is happening, and certainly what they say, they speak, they read the news and repeat it to each other. It's all empty. There's nothing happening. We do live in a strange world, and the problem, as Gurdjieff has correctly diagnosed, is what we call the false self, which is that the activity of the head has become disconnected from the body, and that's why human beings have this strange, hypnotic way of living where they rise up and then destroy themselves, and they don't quite understand what is happening, they don't quite see it, and they truly need help from the outside. And he also says that if we had real words, in other words, three-centered words that you feel inside, that sound like the thing itself, then we wouldn't really need to be educated, because the word itself would transmit the meaning and you would feel it, which is how life really should be. And let's hope that one day human beings can unfuck themselves. I often think that at best everything that's happening in the West, however insane it is a lot of well-meaning people who are trying to keep the light on until someone comes up with the answer. And I hope that one day I will be able to provide some answers at least. Okay, well, thank you for listening once again, and I wish you well. Have a lovely week. Goodbye. From so low, gently we fly.